My childhood was a mixture of happiness and sadness. I spent my summer and winter in my village in Georgia called Salome. My house was located next to the Soviet and post-Soviet orphanage where kids weren't treated right by the system. My grandma worked there, so every time we had an opportunity, we donated clothes, money, and food to the kids. I remember giving them my most favorite things, thinking that they needed it more than I did. Since a toddler, I developed a deep sense of empathy, which contributes greatly to my art. Growing up, I went to a famous Georgian art school for kids where I met my mentor, Zura. Zura had great masters work around the studio, promoting us to copy it, modify it, and make it our own. I started modifying the great master's works, and I still do that to this day. That's why I really want to paint The Last Supper. I really want to make it my own. I started making art seriously when I decided to become a 2D animation major during the first semester of my senior year in high school. I was originally supposed to study business, but after tons of arguments, my parents gave me permission to go to an art school. I remember creating the work for my portfolio in 2.5 months. I drew 20 drawings every single day because I wanted to be the best version of myself. My first year at Pratt was mostly me drawing out my passion on paper. I drew every single day, and I drew a lot because I didn't have any drawing or painting experience that much before. Paper was my emotional diary. My work was mostly inspired by Egon Schiele and Picasso. I was super into Julie Meridew as well. I wanted to be an animation major because I had stories in my head, but as the semester progressed, I realized that I was meant for fine arts, so I switched to painting. My sophomore work consisted of mostly charcoal paintings, where I focused on the biblical figures and the concept of life and death. They were once again inspired by Julie Meritou's, Tracy Emin's, and Egon Schiele's works. During the pandemic, I took a gap year. My paintings took a route I never expected them to take. I made a graffiti friend who played a huge role in the Georgian street art community. His work inspired me to become more colorful and static. The static nature of my work was a metaphor for my staticity in my home. During my junior year, I focused on the idea of a man. I grew up around women, so as a straight woman, it was difficult for me to wrap my head around the male psychology. During that time, the Ukrainian war happened, so my thoughts were filled with men of power. My work was still strongly influenced by street art, but I wanted to move towards less static, more movement, more emotion. Currently, my work revolves around relationships, friendships, lovers, siblings. I love listening to people, listening to their stories, what they have to say. I make up stories in my mind and paint the non-existent realities and myths. Currently, I'm into more monochromatic art where I get to explore a maximum and a minimum.